Grove Kids, this is Amy, and I'm ready to read another story from the It's All About Jesus Storybook Bible. Remember, the Bible has two main parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. We're still in the Old Testament, in the first book, Genesis. Now, we already learned about how God made the earth by speaking. Then we learned about how he made people, and they're special, and they disobeyed him. Then we learned about how God has to punish sin and disobedience, but how God had mercy on Noah because Noah trusted him and obeyed him. Then last time we learned about Abram. Remember him? God gave him a new name. Do you remember what his new name is? It's Abraham. So God gave Abraham promises, right? To have a family, to have a land, and to have a blessing. In our story today, God is going to ask Abraham to do something really, really hard. Probably the hardest thing he could ask him to do. Are you ready? God tested Abraham. Genesis 22. God kept his promise to give Abraham a son. Abraham and his wife Sarah were very old when their son Isaac was born. One day, God tested Abraham. God wanted to make sure that Abraham loved God most of all. God said, "Abraham." Abraham answered, "Here I am." God said, "Take your son Isaac to the mountain and give him to me as a sacrifice." A sacrifice is anything of value brought to God as a way to show love, thanksgiving, obedience, or the need for forgiveness. During Old Testament times, a sacrifice usually involved killing an animal. This time, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac instead. Abraham obeyed God because he trusted him. He got up early the next day and left with Isaac, 2 servants, and a donkey carrying supplies. They walked for 3 days before they got to the mountain where God wanted Abraham to make the sacrifice. Abraham asked his servants to stay with the donkey, and he and Isaac went up to the mountains with the supplies for the sacrifice. Isaac noticed something was missing. "My father," he said, "where's the lamb for the offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb." When they got to the place God had directed them, Abraham built an altar and placed the wood on top. Then he put Isaac on top of the wood. And he had a knife. And just as Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac, the angel of the Lord called out, "Abraham, Abraham!" Abraham stopped. The angel of the Lord said, "Do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your only son from me." Abraham looked up and saw a ram trapped in a bush by its horns. He offered to God the ram instead of Isaac. So he offered God the ram in Isaac's place. Abraham named the place, "The Lord will provide." Here's the picture again. The angel of the Lord reminded Abraham that God would keep the covenant he made with Abraham. God again promised Abraham to make his family as numerous as all the stars in the sky and all the sand on the seashores. God promised Abraham victory over his enemies, and he promised that he would bless every nation on earth through Abraham's family. There's the ram, the substitute Pause the video and see how much of the story you can remember. All right, are you ready for the questions? You can pause after each question and talk about it. Question 1. What did Abraham do that made God happy? Question 2. Do you think it was hard for Abraham to obey God that day? Do you think it was hard for God to provide Jesus as the sacrifice for our sin? Are you ready for the Christ connection? Abraham showed his love for God by being willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. This is how God showed his love for us. He sent his son Jesus to die on the cross so that we could have eternal life through him. Have a great day.